Corroborated
I'd like to call the meeting to order, please. Ms. Ford, will you call the roll?
Chairman Wingate,
Here.
Vice Chairman Smith,
Here.
Dr. Highlander, Mrs. Hill,
Here.
Mrs. Jones, Mrs. Lennon,
Here.
Mr. McClendon,
Here.
Mrs. Robinson, Mrs. Thurman,
Here.
Mr. Taylor,
Here.
Superintendent Dr. Johnson.
Here. Just like to obviously acknowledge we've got a couple board members here, not here right now. Caritza Mosley Jones is away with work, and Dr. Highlander is ill tonight. So, and then also like to acknowledge Senator Gardenhire being with us tonight. So thank you for being here, Senator Gardenhire. Got some amendments before we approve the agenda here. I think you have those before you. Under the consent agenda, item 9C1, under field trips, we're going to pull item 3, which is a field trip for the CSAS upper school, and then also pull item number 4, another field trip for the CSAS upper school. We're going to add item Roman numeral 11, under board matters, which will be a request for proposals to provide security services for Hamilton County Schools. Under events and announcements, we need to add the December 3rd Christmas at the Courthouse event. And then also under delegations, we will have Ms. Heather Madreau. All right, do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Ford?
Mrs. Hill,
Yes.
Mrs. Lennon,
Yes.
Mr. McClendon,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman,
Yes.
Chairman Wingate.
Yes. Okay, as many of you know, today is the 3-year anniversary of the Woodmore accident, and we wanted to take just a minute here to acknowledge that. And also, you'll see there pictures of those young lives, and I want to read these names: Cardasia Jones, Demayan Brown, Keontae Wilson, Zaira Mateen, Zayana Harris, and Zoe Nash. And if you would, let's just take a moment and remember those six children. Thank you. That brings us to our pledge and meditation, which will tonight be delivered by Miss Angie Cass of Ottawa High School.
Chairman Wingate, Superintendent Dr. Johnson, and members of the board. Good evening. I'm Angie Cass, Principal of Ottawa High. We are honored to lead the meditation this evening. November is a month that celebrates gratitude, blessings, family, and love. Tonight, the Ottawa High family would like to share with you a medley meditation featuring a small sample of the many talented student groups we have at OHS. The meditation this evening will be led by members of our back-to-back state champion JROTC Raider team, our award-winning choir, our award-winning culinary team, our 2019 Quest Bridge Scholar finalist, and will be filmed by our new audio-visual broadcasting program. You can find the names of the students participating this evening on the printed page that accompanies your agenda. At this time, would you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated.
Some days we forget to look around us. Some days we can see the joy that surrounds us. So caught up inside ourselves, we take when we should give. So for tonight we pray for what we know can be, and on this day we hope for what we still can see. It's up to us to be the change, and even though we all can still do more, there's so much to be thankful for.
Be thankful that you don't already have everything you desire. If you did, what else would there be to look forward to?
Be thankful when you don't know something, for it gives you the opportunity to learn.
Be thankful for the difficult times. During those times, you grow.
Be thankful for your limitations, because they give you opportunities for improvement.
Be thankful for each new challenge, because it will build your strength and character.
Be thankful for your mistakes. They will teach you valuable lessons.
Be thankful when you're tired and weary, because it means you've made a difference.
It is easy to be thankful for the good things. A life of rich fulfillment comes to those who are also thankful for the setbacks.
Gratitude can turn a negative into a positive. Find a way to be thankful for your troubles, and they can become your blessings. We are Ottawa. We are Hamilton. Thank you.
Great job. Thank you, Ms. Cass, for sharing your students with us tonight. We will now recognize our exemplars of excellence, Dr. Justin Robertson.
Chairman Wingate, Dr. Johnson, members of the board, thank you. The AF Bridges Award is given in honor of TSSAA's first executive secretary. According to the TSSAA, Bridges was a person of high principles who displayed firmness and fairness, as well as the high ideals of ethics and integrity. Each year in total, there are 7 AF Bridges Award winners. The award is given for School System Administrator of the Year, Principal of the Year, Athletic Director of the Year, Female Coach of the Year, Male Coach of the Year, Official of the Year, and Contributor of the Year. This year, we were fortunate and excited to recognize 3 winners from right here in Hamilton County of the 2019 AF Bridges Award. I'll ask 2 of them to come up, and one of them just probably can stand. 2019 School System Administrative Award of the Year is Dr. Brian Johnson. You got to stand. The 2019 Principal of the Year is Miss Angie Cass from Ottawa High School. And the 2019 Athletic Director of the Year from Red Bank High School, Miss Mandy Munn. We're fortunate to have such great leaders in the system of our athletics, and I think it's a testament to the work that we do in the county and the example that you guys set for us as a board to make sure that we're leading our athletes in a way that is representative of the ideals of AF Bridges, and we're excited to have 3 award winners this year. Thank you.
Congratulations to all of you all, and thank you so much for what you do for our children.
I'm going to ask Mr. Charlie Spencer from Chattanooga Robotics and the TVA to join me up here at this time. So earlier this year, we had a really exciting announcement, and we're back with a even more exciting announcement. The Tennessee Principal of the Year Award is presented annually to a school leader for outstanding service in education and exceptional leadership that drives school improvement. This annual award recognizes administrators who have helped provide educational opportunity for Tennessee students through leadership, programs, and vision. In 2018, Dr. Leandria Ware returned to her alma mater to be the executive principal at the Howard School. She was nominated by her Hamilton County peers as our representative, and we are very proud to honor her again tonight for being selected as the Tennessee Principal of the Year for 2019.
So I wanted to help celebrate this occasion with 2 gifts. One is priceless. It's our famous dancing robot. The other is the other is not so priceless, but it's a check for $2,500 for you. It's in recognition, really, not only of Dr. Ware, but really the excellence of all of our teachers and principals and administrators in Hamilton County.
Thank you so much. Thank you so very much. I've said it before, and I'll say it again and again and again. I'm just so grateful to have the privilege to show up every day at 2500 South Market Street and to wake up every day and have the privilege and the honor to serve over 1,100 students and make a positive impact in their lives. And I say all the time that it is our moral imperative to make that positive impact, because when we impact one positively, we impact generations to come. And I can remember just thinking back, I can't read it to you because Dr. Drake has my phone, but thinking back, technology, right? Thinking back to when the announcement went out about the finalists for the principal of the state of Tennessee, I received a letter from a student that I have not seen nor heard from in over 8 years. And she went on talking about just how my leadership had made such a positive impact on her life, and how she's now seeking to start a ministry to minister to teens and to give back, and how just walking in that first day, just my smile and how I embraced her and how that made a difference. And I tell people, to me, that letter was the gift beyond measure. And to me, it exemplifies why I can stand here and proudly represent not only the Howard School, Hamilton County Department of Education, the state of Tennessee, and just represent being Principal of the Year. And my promise to each of you, again, I wake up every day with the privilege to go and make a difference. And as long as I have breath in my body and fire in my soul, I will continue to be a ferocious advocate and courageous leader for all children. Thank you all for all that you do. I really appreciate you. And we always have something going on at Howard School, and so I could not bring the amazing people with me tonight. I always say this is a we journey, not a me journey. And so for those that were able to make it, if you all would stand, you all give them a round of applause as well. Team Howard, go Tigers. Do I get to shake hands?
You can. Yes, ma'am. Come on.
I'll be quick.
Congratulations again, Dr. Ware, and thank you for your hard work and your influence. All right, we will now hear from our delegations. First up here will be Ms. Jeanette O'Markell. Yeah, and then after that will be Ms. Heather Mudrow. If you all will give Vice Chairman Joe Smith your attention for a moment.
Welcome, ladies. Just as a reminder, thank you for your interest in addressing the Hamilton County Board of Education. During your presentation, please address the board as a whole, not individual board members or administrators. Also, do not present complaints or concerns you have about an individual employee of the school system. If you wish to voice those complaints and concerns, you should contact the central office and ask for a meeting with the superintendent. If you are criticizing an individual employee, I will interrupt you and ask you to refrain. If you continue to criticize individual employees, or if your remarks are in error or being repetitive, I may interrupt you and ask you to sit down. Please limit your remarks to 5 minutes, and I'll let you know when you have 1 minute left. You may begin when you're ready.
Thank you. Good evening, Chairman Wingate, Dr. Johnson, and members of the board. On October 3rd, 1789, a National Day of Thanksgiving was instituted by President George Washington through proclamation to commemorate the first Thanksgiving, where our forefathers gathered to celebrate God's blessings on our non-yet formed nation. I use this time of year to reflect and celebrate these blessings as well. Today, I am thankful for a school board who truly cares about our children, our teachers, and our schools, who share their passions in their own unique ways. Today, I am thankful for a strong group of leaders and support teams at central office. Today, I am thankful for a superintendent with a vision to challenge us to move beyond our comfort zone to seek to lead the state in achievement and growth, whose transparency, passion, and energy, that last may actually be the coffee, but nonetheless has brought a fresh excitement to our district. Today, I'm thankful for teachers who are willing to sacrifice for their students when necessary, who are ready and willing to go above and beyond to make difference in lives, who are also boldly standing with strength, confidence, and determination to speak up for what teachers and students need now. Today, I'm thankful for a community who has spoken up and shown up in support of the schools and given of themselves to improve where they can. Today, I'm thankful for a mayor who is consistent in his strong belief and support for teachers, who realizes the reality of our students' needs, who is not bowed to political pressure in the school needs discussion. Today, I am thankful for the county commissioners who have voiced their support of teachers and students. We may not agree on issues at the moment, but important and needed discussions are beginning. Today, I am thankful for the ongoing spotlight in Hamilton County on education and the opportunity we have to model the goal of education to go beyond increasing knowledge and to create possibilities to invent, discover, and create adults who are capable of doing new, innovative things. Today, I am thankful for Hamilton County schools being at a new starting point. Sometimes it takes a subtle shift in perspective, an opening of the mind, an intentional pause, and reset to start to see new options and new possibilities. The dictionary defines turning point as a point at which a decisive change takes place. We have reached a turning point in Hamilton County. We are on the brink of amazing opportunities if we will come together and take the journey. Let's not get caught in the buts and what ifs that limit the possibilities of our future. Let's instead do what we ask of our students and help each other move past the fear of the unknown. If we will make a commitment to make a difference in public education in Hamilton County and open up to the possibilities that are numerous and decide to not react to fear, inspiration will unfold. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm very nervous. Good evening, wonderful school board members. In case you don't know me, my name is Heather Madro, and I am a teacher at East Ridge Elementary. First of all, I want to thank each person who was able to attend the teacher town hall on Sunday. I know it was a sacrifice to step away from your other engagements and responsibilities and be part of the difficult conversation. I know you were faced with some thought-provoking questions that hopefully together we can find some solutions in the upcoming months. I hope that it was a start to progress between the school board and the commissioners with community member involvement. Today, I am not going to talk to you about teacher pay or PECA or anything else regarding additional money or how it was spent in the past. I'm moving forward. In fact, if you keep listening, I'm going to offer you a solution to a real need that won't cost you anything more than you are already paying now. It may even save you money and boost teacher morale. I hope I have your attention. The substitute problem is a big concern. Sunday, it was stated that system-wide about 80% of the jobs get filled. Some days it's down to 69%, some buildings is 50%. When there are no subs to cover classes, teachers do it. Teachers split and absorb another teacher student or take a class during their planning period. It's not fun to walk into school and find out that you now have extra work because they couldn't find a sub. I learned that ESS was hired to fill sub positions, and this concerns me. As a recruiting agency, they do not have the best interest of our students in mind, just a body in the classroom. I've talked to our well-loved subs who went to the ESS training, and they were told that HCDE does not care about them, that ESS does, and will offer them a $500 raffle ticket if they work every day. That's the message out there. Just a body in the classroom who may or may not have the necessary skills to work and teach in some of our classrooms. I'm sad that this contract with an outside agency has happened without asking teachers if we have any solutions, because I do. I did a little digging and saw that subs are paid anywhere from $56 to $110 based on their qualifications. And here's my solution. $70 a day, divided among those who fill in when there is no sub to be found. Take the money that you would have paid a sub and give it to the teachers who are doing the work instead. What that looks like at an elementary school, at my school, that may look like one third grade teacher who had to split her class among the remaining 7 classes, and each teacher would earn a $10 stipend for that day, taking 3 to 4 extra students. In a smaller elementary school, where there may only be 3 of a grade level, the missing subclass split among 2 classes, each teacher would earn $35 for the day with 10 to 12 extra students. If a high school or middle school teacher splits a class, it can be worked the same way. If they cover during planning, it might need to be based on the number of blocks in a given day. I don't have all those details. I only know elementary. It doesn't cost anything extra to use the money that would have been given to a sub already. Give it to the teachers who are doing the work of that missing sub. $70 as a day rate is more than fair, considering subs can earn over $110 a day. $10 a day for the inconvenience of taking and teaching extra students you didn't have time to plan for doesn't seem like a lot, but if it were paid out quarterly, I bet it would add up to a lot, especially in those schools where 50% is lacking. When the teacher gets that check covering the missing subs, they can take their family out for a nice dinner or treat themselves knowing that they were appreciated for stepping up in a time of need. I realize that once again, I might be too late because I just didn't know, and the ESS contract might already have happened, and there might not be any way to get out of it. But please, in the future, consider asking teachers some of our ideas. We have some great ideas if you just ask us for current and future problems. After all, we are the ones that are in the mission field. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. We will now have our presentations. We will begin with a recognition of Senate Bill number 26. Senator Todd Gardenhire.
I'm going to sit that right there on the corner, if you don't mind. Ladies and gentlemen of the school board, Superintendent Johnson, a year ago, first of this month, several of us in the Bradley County delegation met with the Bradley County School Board in a session where we exchanged ideas and discussions. And one of the first things that Dr. Cash brought up was the problem of vaping that went on in the middle schools and in the high schools. And with that information, I sat down with the School Board Association and the Superintendent Association, and then came down and met in Hamilton County and talked to Dr. Johnson and several principals that I knew in the middle school session just to get their ideas on vaping and what the problem was and what we might in the state do to help with that problem. And so this bill, Senate Bill 26, Dan Howell of Representative Dan Howell of Bradley County was my House sponsor, basically put vaping in the code along with all tobacco products. And one of the things that we did do was we extended the footage from the school which somebody could smoke or do vape from 50 feet to 100 feet to try to keep that out of the school system. We were amazed, as I'm sure a lot of the principals and teachers in our system, of the amount of the ways that students can be innovative and sneaking these things into the school system. They could literally put it under their desk, bring it up through their coat, and vape while class was going on. Use a flash drive that was full of vaping products into their computer and then pull it out and put it into a vaping machine. The innovative ways that these kids did to try to figure out how to get around the system was pretty amazing. And I mean that not in a positive way, but in a way of just, if they want to get around the system, they'll figure out a way to get around the system. But what this bill does, it gives the schools a little bit more ammunition to help bring the attention of the dangers of vaping, and then also puts it in the code, which it wasn't before, to allow y'all to enforce limits around school buildings to do it. Since it came from Bradley County and Hamilton County, I thought it'd be appropriate to present a copy of the original bill to Dr. Johnson to display however he feels is necessary to remind people about the dangers of vaping. And so with that, I'd like to present you with a copy of this bill.
Thank you, Senator, for that. We'll now have a Future Ready update from Mr. Keith Fogelman.
Good evening. I'm going to take a few minutes this evening to give you an update about great teachers and great leaders. And you know, it's as we think about this was really one of the ways that we really, from a human resource standpoint, Yeah. I've been down a couple of times this week. As I was saying, we use this plan from a human resource standpoint to really set our priorities and focus on the things that we need to be improving. Just to remind you, the key strategies around this area is recruit and select top talent, retain talent, competitive total rewards, professional learning and growth, identifying and support our leaders, and we also are focusing on our professional and classified employees in our talent development. Some key performance indicators. This last year we had some goals that we established. We wanted to be able to offer a position 32 days after it was posted. We ended up at 37. Our diversity index was 1 to 53. That means for every one teacher of color, we had a target of 53 students of color. We didn't meet that goal. Our first year retention rate, we established a goal of 75%. We ended up last year at 86%. And this year we will be our benchmark or our baseline for second year teacher retention will be 71%. So we'll be tracking our cohort of second year teachers. Just to give you a little bit more detail on our diversity index, the bottom line is we didn't really make any progress in that. We're pretty much flat as we look at our diverse teachers versus our white teachers. So when we talk about recruit and select top talent, here's some of our goals. First of all, you've heard me talk about this. Our target is to recruit from the first time we make contact until that teacher begins the first day of school. And I'll be showing you some of the things that we're doing to accomplish that. Some of our other goals is we want to target to have our classrooms filled at the first day of school. We will be expanding our experienced teacher recruitment pipeline, and we're looking at expanding some of our other pipelines this year also. We're looking at improving technology, our applicant tracking system, as well as we're going to be adding another communication tool to our technology. So let me start by just saying, kind of setting the landscape from a talent pool standpoint. When you look at from a national standpoint, and this was a 2009 through 2016 study. We're anticipating an update on this information, but there was a 35% reduction in enrollments in education prep programs. Then if we bring that closer to home and look at UTC, we saw a 24% decrease in enrollments and a 40% decrease in graduates. This year, when we looked at last year, really our staffing by the numbers, look at the positions we filled for school year 1920, we brought 316 new to Hamilton County teachers. Now, within that group, there's 170 first-year teachers. That's actually down from last year. We were right at 200 first-year teachers last year. We filled over 800, right at 840 certified jobs and over 400 classified jobs. We brought teachers in from 19 different states. If you kind of look, one thing I want to, we're always comparing how are we doing and looking at trying to understand, how we're keeping our positions filled. This gives you a look at the first day of school. We actually opened the first day of school with 4 classrooms not filled. We had 13 positions on the board, full-time positions on the board at that time. And 4 of those were vacancies that we knew were going to exist in September and October timeframe, so we'd already posted a position. If you look today, we had a fill rate of 97% in our learning communities. I've focused this on our learning communities, and we've got 22 open positions. 8 of those positions are January vacancies that will be in process of filling. So just to kind of give you a comparison where we were at the first day of school compared to where we are today. Our staffing timeline. You saw this last year, a version of it last year, and really our focus when we look at this staffing timeline, our focus is kind of early. We want to try to do everything early. Three things I'll point out. We've already had our fall recruitment event. We have started already posting positions in the opportunity zone. We're also in the process of moving any temporary teachers into permanent regular positions without posting. That'll go on until the end of this calendar year. And then just to point out that our transfer date for teachers is April 1st. That had in previous years been June 1st. This will be our second year doing the April 1st. Now, here's what has happened as a result of making some of the changes to early. We see that comparison 2018, 39% of our positions were filled prior to May 1st. And then this past year, we filled 58 positions prior to May 1st. And so this was a recommendation not only that we see from research, but also when TNTP was in about a year ago, one of their recommendations was change your staffing timeline, fill your positions early. They've recommended we should be in the 65% to really be effective. So we got a little work to do here. So part of that early, filling these early positions is cultivating relationships. I'll talk about just two specific things. We've started a university partnership consortium that's with UTC, Lee, and Southern. And the goal in this partnership is really a focus on student teachers. We're doing two or three things specifically. First of all, we focus on the placement. Secondly, we focus on mentor training. Who are they paired up with, and what type of training does that mentor have as they're working with these student teachers? And really the third thing we're doing, they're included in part of our first-year teacher induction, and we use this opportunity as a recruitment pitch as we're working with them. And so what we're really trying to do is be sure our student teachers understand the curriculum, understand the way that we do business in Hamilton County so that they're comfortable with us, and we've got really a step up on recruiting. I should have mentioned, we also have got 30, we're targeting 30 universities this year for visits for recruiting, primarily here in the Southeast region. That's actually down 7 schools from last year. We did a cost-benefit analysis and decided that there were some of the schools that really did not provide the right investment. We didn't really reap any results. So we've altered our schedule just a little bit. We'll be attending 7 historically black colleges and universities. We just really expanded that last year, and while we didn't see a big return on that investment last year, we think that we'll continue to build those relationships, and we'll see that investment will pay off for us. Recruitment fairs. We do 2 of those a year. We just, like I said, completed the fall. We had 160 applicants attend that. We've already made offers to 6 of those. And we've identified some good candidates, not only for the second semester, some of the positions we'll be filling, but a substantial number of the people that attended the fair will not actually graduate until this spring, but we've identified candidates that we'll start tracking to keep up with and eventually plan to be offering positions to them. We're expanding our classified to attend to local events, but we'll be sponsoring Hamilton County Schools events this year. A little bit, just to show you, as it's just not about setting up the fair and having applicants attend. We actually do a lot of work up front with them to really prepare them to come to the fair. Talk to them about their resume, what to wear. They get an email from us with information that they should do to prepare for the fair. We want them to put their best foot forward. Building the brand. That's another way of saying we want to tell our story. We've had a lot of success in Hamilton County during this last year, and we want to make sure that the folks that we're recruiting understand the success that we've experienced. We also want to emphasize Chattanooga as being a great place to live. Some of the details we focus on, what the opportunities for leadership in our district. We also highlight the induction opportunities. We're one of the few districts that have an extensive induction program. I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. We cover 3 years. We also are leveraging social media. And like I said, we focus a lot on Chattanooga. And before you have our this year's recruiting brochure. This is at all of when we're attending any of our events, especially at universities, other types of recruiting events. This is really a brochure that really we use to try to get the applicants and the candidates' attention. Preview days. We kicked this off last year, and it was pretty successful, but we think there's a lot of opportunity to improve. We'll actually begin earlier this year. We're starting next month. First week of December will be our first one with Covenant, and then we'll do it by university. We'll tour 3 to 4 schools, and then they'll do an interview, and what we're really focused on is that candidate experience, trying to get them in our schools so that they can kind of see how we go about doing business. Signing day. We've talked about that, I think, before. It was a big hit last year. Our focus was really what we're trying to do is get a little enthusiasm around our new hires. It's part of recruit to the first day of school. And we approached it similar to what you would see a college athletic signing day, similar to what a football player may be doing or a basketball player. So we really wanted to emphasize that and have some fun at the same time. It gave them an opportunity to network with their future first-year teachers as well as interact with a lot of the district and school administration. We actually got this picked up in a national publication, Educational Leadership, highlighted us in one of in their September. Additional pipelines, just to give you an update on what we're doing with Teach for America. We had 17 core members placed. We had 17 core members placed. We're paying for 15. If you look at the breakdown of our men to women, our diversity, and the schools that we have the core members assigned to. And then Project Inspire, we hired 21 last year residents for this year, and we have 22 residents this year. We have 3 that we've talked about before, job embedded, Ooltewah High, Red Bank High, and East Ridge Elementary. You see our breakdown, men to women, and our diversity and learning communities that they're assigned to. So one of the other things that we're starting to look at is alternative licensing. We first of all, we have had several exceptional ed positions that we have had difficulty filling. Exceptional education teachers are, I guess, use my grandfather's phrase, scarce as hen's teeth. So what we're trying to do in looking at this is we've found 6 of our exceptional education assistants that have bachelor's degrees. One actually has a master's, and we're going to be able to enter them into a job embedded program. They'll be taking the praxis in the month of December, and then they'll be starting coursework at Tennessee Tech in the 2nd semester. So they'll be filling 6 of our exceptional education teacher positions in January. We're also looking at a initiative that's being partnership with the state, Clarksville, Montgomery County, Austin Peay, and Lipscomb And what they're doing is developing some alternative pipelines that really focus on recruiting from the community, from classified employees, and what they believe, and based on the work that we've done so far, it's an opportunity to improve our retention and our diversity. Because when you look at the folks that would be recruited for these type of positions, they're local folks, and in most cases already in our school system and interested in supporting what work we need to do. We've got some work to do. We're actually visiting Clarksville, Montgomery County next week, or rather the first week of December, and there's some coordination that we'll need to do with our partners, with the state, before we're ready to really present the program. But we think there's some real opportunity here to be able to expand into one of our own pipeline. Some things we got in process, I mentioned technology. We also are looking at expanding our experienced teacher pipeline. There's a huge job fair in Pittsburgh. We actually had one of our teachers at Middle Valley Elementary shared the information with us. We had already had it on our radar screen. She's going to actually go with us to the job fair, and she's got some connections in several of the universities and schools up there. We're also, as we look at continuous improvement, focusing on communications with our candidates, looking at our processes. So let me talk a little bit about talent retention. First of all, our turnover rate for certified. You can see last year we were at 9.57% turnover. The previous year we'd have been almost 11%. Some of that's driven by the retirement incentive. We look at our resignation trends. I suspect if we had not had the retirement incentive, that 2017-2018 trend would have been probably pretty close to 18-19 as well as 16 and 17. But that trend, 266 resignations last year. First year teacher retention, I talked a little bit about this, the progress we made there. And some of the things I'll be talking to you next is based on exit interviews telling us that our first year teachers felt like they didn't get the support they need from a 17 survey as well as the school year 17-18 survey. We also know from research that 60% of our teachers, if they're not properly inducted, will leave the field in 5 years. So first thing, what do? We changed our way that we do the orientation. We actually are doing orientation 2.0. We've changed it again. It's still part of that theory about recruiting to the first day of school and the networking with our new hire cohort. We added a monthly late hire orientation this year, and what this really does, not only a little bit about HCDE 101, but it also gives them an opportunity to interact with their curriculum coach one-on-one. We also have added a classified orientation. We've had over 200 of our classified employees go through this orientation, and we do breakout sessions for them specific to their job function. As an example, some of our frontline employees interacting with the public, we do a customer service orientation for them. Our induction program, 3 years. We've initially kicked off the first year with just 1 year, and this year we'll be adding the second year, and of course next year the third year. But the second year is a lot about classroom management and supporting them as they make that move into that second year. Our new teacher academy, we started out with 4 days. We added a 5th day this year. It's a site-based orientation, which included a community tour. And we had 11 schools participate in attached to our new teacher academy, but we also had some other schools learned about this approach and actually implemented tours on their own. Really, the focus is understand their students better, and First Student provided us buses and drivers at no cost, and we had tours in rural, urban. We had tours that covered both elementary and secondary. Our new teacher network meets monthly. It's aligned to this phases a first-year teacher goes through. It's a heavy dose of classroom management as well as activities to support the whole teacher, well teacher. This year, we changed our mentoring approach. We have school-based mentors. They get 4 days of training, and they not only work with our new teachers, but they work with our new to Hamilton County teachers, our new to the building teachers, as well as our student teachers. And they're conducting monthly sessions at school, and of course, they continue to do individual mentoring with first-year teachers. I've talked a little bit, we doubled the number of participants in our comp training this year, classroom organization and management. We're kicking off face-to-face interviews for some of the key content areas when we see a resignation. And we're enhancing our induction for our job-embedded permit and CTE teachers. Leadership development, we're kind of starting down a path of rethinking leadership development. First of all, this summer we had Mike Rutherford in to do some work with us on coaching and feedback and crucial conversations, as well as doing some breakout labs where we focused on really looking at some practice activities around coaching and feedback. We're looking at how we do our succession planning and tying that into our leadership development pipeline, and then we'll be also working on teacher leader preparation. Finally, health and wellness. We'll be starting to open up a clinic this spring, and our first one, clinic and pharmacy, we're projecting to be April. We think that we'll be able to do the second one this summer, and then we'll also in the spring have an opportunity to participate in the vendors clinic. It won't be exclusively our clinic, but our employees will be able to visit that clinic. It'll be down on Riverfront Parkway. And really all of this is about just trying to make Hamilton County the best school district in Tennessee. Any questions?
Mrs. Robinson.
Sure. Thank you so much, Keith. This is my favorite part of being a board member, hearing about how we're recruiting teachers and keeping them excited about being here in Hamilton County. I have a number of questions for you. First of all, I was curious, what are the TFA teachers that have been recruited? What subjects are they teaching? Do you know offhand, or is it a spread?
It's a spread. Off the top of my head, I don't know.
Okay.
I can provide that information to you.
Well, yeah, and the reason why I asked is I was curious if we ended up recruiting teachers for our hardest to place subjects.
There was a focus on that, so but I'll give you the breakdown.
Okay, that would be great. The new Teacher Academy, I think it's really, I think it's pretty phenomenal that we do that, and that's a great program. I was curious, I'm curious if you've heard from teachers who've been in the field for a long time. I know I've heard from teachers that they wish they had that when they started. So I wondered if you thought through maybe ever setting up those topics as professional development sessions for whenever our teachers have PD days, that maybe they could have the training that new teachers are receiving, even though maybe they've been in the field for quite some time. I wondered if that's ever come up.
I think we're doing some of that working with Justin and his team. Also, our comp training is picking up experienced teachers this year.
That's awesome. That's great. I guess the last thing that I wanted to comment on is that, we talk a lot about retention, and I made a comment about this at Sunday's event when someone brought up, what pay could be for teachers in the future. I really think that there's policy work that we can do around creating more general benefits for our teachers. And, I actually feel ashamed that I didn't realize this sooner, or to bring it up sooner as a school board member and as a mom. But I know that our teachers only receive 6 weeks of maternity leave. And they have very poor environments for, doing the things that new moms need to do inside of their schools. And so like Mr. Smith has taken on coming up with a new piece of property for our school buses over in Hickson, I'm making it my mission as a school board member to see us create some new policies around what new mothers need as they're working in our schools as well. So I'd like to really encourage your team to think through that. And I hope that as a board, we can think through those policies with with you because it is really important. But more importantly, every other business and every other corporation in this country is coming up with a better way to do better by their working mothers. And why wouldn't we do the same as a school system?
So I agree with you, and I heard your comment Sunday and made a note. So it is now on our action item list. And just to tell you quickly, my staff must be listening in. They were in elementary with TFA elementary, math, and English language.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, I look forward to talking more about those policies.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mrs. Lennon.
Thank you, Keith. That was a great presentation, and I love to hear about the recruitment part and the retention part. I wanted to follow up with thank you, Heather, for coming forward today and talking about the substitute pay. And I, for one, as a school board member, have to say shame on me for not coming to teachers and asking you all for, golly, that's a very, you were being very thoughtful, and that's a good option to think about going to the teachers. There's so many teachers that do have to substitute and take classes, and I just assumed that if a teacher was in a building and they were taking a class, did they not get paid?
No. Okay. So I'll just mention that in our collaborative conferencing last year, this was a topic that was brought up, and actually we've assigned that to one of the labor management committees. So that'll be a topic that we'll be discussing again this year. Probably will be early next year now, but that is a topic for discussion. And we had some discussion about it in our meetings last year, and we put it in a labor management team to see if they could come back with some solutions to make that workable.
Okay, because I just that needs to happen. I just think if teachers are in the building and they are covering a class and they're losing their planning period, then they definitely need to be compensated, because you would be having to pay a sub. So that's something we all need to look at and be mindful of. So Heather, thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Mr. Smith.
Keith, thank you for the amazing work you and your team are doing. Just a couple of things that kind of caught my attention just a little bit. We hear and read a lot about teachers leaving the system for whatever reason, and you touched on the exit interview just a little bit. Can you share how many teachers we have lost since the beginning of the school year, for whatever reason? But not interested in the reason right now, but how many have we lost year to date since the beginning of the school year?
So year to date, and check it today, but just right at 40. 41.
41. How does that number track with previous years in terms of losing teachers this year to date?
So I don't know year to date. I will say that it's tracking higher than last year, year to date, because we ran a number at the end of first semester last year, and we were at, I think it was 39 at the end of first semester last year. So we're tracking above that 39 number here at the end of November.
Okay, just barely, by two people. Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, and actually that number last year was tracking below the previous 2 years, but at the end of the year we still ended up at about 266 resignations.
So it'd probably be fair to say then, so over maybe a 5-year period, we're pretty much where we have been. Is that fair to say?
It could be, yes. I'd just have to go back and look. I've looked at it from a 3-year period, but I haven't gone back and looked at 5 years.
But then
But it'd be close. It'd be
The whole
close.
reason I asked that question is because you often hear and read, the teachers are defecting by the boatloads, and so I just wanted to make, I thought that was the number, but I just wanted to make that clear because that's a fallacy that teachers are leaving by the boatloads. The other thing I did want to ask you, your department, I guess as I understand it, is kind of responsible for all employees.
That's correct.
Some 6,000 employees. In a year's time, what's the turnover of those 6,000, all employees? What would be the turnover? And I know you don't have that exact number, but maybe just a guess, estimate.
Joe, I would be worried to give you that because we have a fair amount of turnover in some of our lower paid classifications.
Right.
Ed assistants, our child nutrition jobs, we see some turnover in those positions.
Bus drivers, housekeeping, all that.
See, we're not responsible for bus drivers or the custodial staff.
Okay, so that wouldn't be included.
So I really don't
your-
see that turnover. We just have to. I'd be hesitant to venture a guess.
Okay.
But I will say this: that we just are. When the economy's good, we see more turnover.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for the work that you and your entire team do every day. Thank you, Keith.
Thank you. Well, I work with a great team.
Mr. McClendon.
Yeah, I'll echo that. Y'all have just done awesome this past year and getting all these new programs up. Something that did catch my eye, it was on the retention bar graph. It was the first year retention was 86%. Second year retention was 71%. What do you know why? I mean, what the correlation is?
So our first year, what we're doing is tracking a cohort.
Okay.
So our first year teacher retention for 17, 18 was 74%.
Okay.
We lost 3% more of those teachers last year. So we went from 74 to 71 in that cohort. Our cohort for this year for last year was 86%. So what we'll be doing now is following that 71% cohort to see how we do years 3, 4, and 5.
Gotcha.
Mrs. Hill.
Could we please go back to the slide that has the graph about how many teachers are graduating versus how many teachers are needed?
This one? Nope.
No, that one. Okay, I just want to study this a little bit more. So supply versus demand. So our estimated supply in 2021, and this is a national?
Yes, that's a national graph.
So we're at less than 200,000 anticipated graduated teachers with an anticipated demand of
over 300,000.
Almost, more than 300,000 nationally. Where is our, one other thing before I ask that question, resignation versus retirement. Is a retirement considered a resignation?
It is not.
It is not, okay. So where is our ledge for boomer retirements? What is what's our date where what is difficult in recruiting is going to become extraordinarily difficult without the measures that we're taking now?
So round numbers. We, over the last 3 or 4 years, we've averaged about 100, 115 retirements. Okay, so we're probably starting to be in that boomer retirement window. Our retirements were down last year. went up the previous year because of the incentive, but what we anticipate that we're going to probably level off and be somewhere in the 100 and 115 range again this year. Now, one of the things that we're a little bit challenged to be able to do this with our Brent talked Monday a little bit about our replacement system, and in our current system, we're a little bit limited on what we can do to collect information. But we've got a project going right now to where we're going to try to project, what our retirement is going to look like this year and, out 2 to 3 years, so that we can start really doing some more long-range planning. I would say the work that we've done in the last 2 years have really been focused on short term, and we need to start still focused on the short term, but really expand our thinking, 2 and 3 years down the road, so that we're, working with our partners so we understand what our needs and pipeline is going to be, so we're proactive and not reactive.
Okay. Another question. So we've got retirement on one end, and we have young generation, millennial generation, and the generation behind them coming in with a very different work habit or career habit, maybe. I don't know the exact word for that. But, I've seen in the private sector that millennials move jobs more often, move cities more often than certainly Generation X and the generations older than us. So what are the great minds in HR think? Because, we have a 5-year look, where we can say, well, this is historic. But, in my industry, I've seen, to hold on to an employee for 5 years is it's cause for a big fat party. Like, nobody makes it to get a gold watch because they've had 8 other jobs, which is probably part of why employers are taking advantage of employees, honestly.
So I think there's probably, there's several things. So first of all, really, we want to rethink our leadership pathways, not only for into administrator roles, but also for teacher leaders. Because you're right, they might not want the job for 5 years, but if we can offer them what another job within our system might look like, then that's an opportunity. Secondly, creating some of our own pipelines, especially if we focus on some of our own employees that, like education assistants that are part of the system. They've kind of maybe put roots down here in the Chattanooga area. Family and friends are here. If we can move them into our teaching ranks, then, that'd be another way to offset that 5-year window of job movement. That's just a couple of ways. What we're trying to do is learn from other school districts, but also learn from industry about how they're working.
Okay. It occurred to me just as you were talking, how can we poach like the private industry does from other places? We
routinely do that.
But sorry, Nashville. Sorry, Knox. But I wonder if we could get some data from the chamber about where we see millennials moving in and out, because who knows? I've seen people come from Montana, come from Colorado, those cities that we are sort of benchmarked with, Asheville. Like, could we do low dollar social media campaigns about how great Chattanooga is, and come teach in Chattanooga, so you've got a really energetic mid-career teacher? I don't know. Put $20 on it and see what happens.
Well, that's the reason we're going to Pittsburgh, and I think it's March. And then what we do a lot of time. So first of all of our job postings are pulled into Ed Week, into their job posting board. So we're actually getting nationwide exposure to our jobs.
Okay, great. And then one final comment. I think this brochure is terrific. It's got a lot of energy to it. And if we don't already, Brian, this might be a neat thing to reformat for realtors to be able to have in their cars and hand out when they've got folks looking around. Thank you. Appreciate all your work.
Thank you.
Mrs. Thurman.
Yes, I was just wondering about the sub situation. We kind of alluded to that at our agenda session the other night. Where are we on that? Are we tracking about where we normally do, or better?
So we're running right now this week. We've been in the low 70s, upper 60% on fill rates. As far as the transition to ESS, we're tracking on schedule to do that at the first of the year. We have had orientation sessions. All of our current subs were invited to those, and we had a session at the principals meeting this week just to really kind of give them an update. ESS has been out to all of our schools to meet with the school secretaries, who kind of is the point of contact for a lot of the sub work. So that's kind of where we stand right now with them.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
Yeah, just real quick. 3 things out of like. One is to give some contextualize a little bit. So you spoke to the 40 or 41. 41 represents about 1.3% of our entire teaching force. When we talk about resignations, and we're paying attention to that, but the thing I think we'll pay more attention to, or as much attention to, is the fill rates. And so when you look by learning community, to have all of our learning communities at 95% or above for fill rates, and district-wide across learning communities to be at 97%, I think that's an important thing. The other thing I'll speak to about subs is the impetus for, I think, Keith, you may better speak a little bit better to this than even I. The impetus for us looking at potentially outsourcing subs was around the feedback from teachers of not having to cover too many classes. We started talking about, could we do something with pay for the coverage of class in our collaborative conferencing on last year, and we definitely will. That will be a point of conversation, because I've heard that personally as I've been out talking to teachers in just informal sit-downs. But the impetus behind us looking at outsourcing was to improve fill rates, because ideally, in a perfect world, even if through labor management and collaborative conferencing we're able to pay teachers for the time in which they go above and beyond, in a perfect world, a teacher has planning time, and they don't have to cover in that way. And that's where we're trying to get to, where, and I've been a principal in a school district where teachers had to cover and there was not a mechanism to pay them for it, and every time we did it, we knew we were taking time, but that's just a challenge that we were pressed with across the district. So I just, anything in regards to the impetus for looking at outsourcing.
Well, so really, one of the things we were concerned with, because we recognized this was a problem, was fill rate. And that's what led us down the path of looking at what could we do. And, the research said that this approach could allow us to see up a 90% fill rate. And we felt like that was going to be able to address a lot of the issues that we were experiencing. Of course, in the contract, we hold them accountable if it's not a 95% fill rate. So.
And just because that happens, that doesn't mean that we won't still be able to do this and look at teachers. Brent, we'll find some money, won't we?
Be a good thing to discuss.
It would be a good thing to discuss, but we'll look at both ends.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Fogelman. All right, that brings us to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, do we have any items that we'd like to look at here? Okay. Mrs. Ford?
Mrs. Hill?
Yes.
Mrs. Lennon?
Yes.
Mr. McClendon?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman?
Yes.
Chairman Wingate?
Yes. We'll now take a look at administrative business matters. We have the deed transfer at the Mowbray Mountain property. So Mr. Witt here.
No, I'll speak to it. Okay. So, Board, you've seen this in, I believe, May, and it's just it's the actual deed transfer for the Mowbray Mountain property for the fire hall.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All right, Ms. Ford?
Mrs. Hill,
Yes.
Mrs. Lennon,
Yes.
Mr. McClendon.
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman,
Yes.
Chairman Wingate.
Yes. Okay, under board matters, we have a request there for proposals from the administration to look for providing security services for Hamilton County Schools. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
You have a second?
I'm sorry, did we discuss this on Monday? Okay, we went into depth about it on Monday?
Well, we can discuss here in a minute.
Okay, that'd be
Need a
great.
second.
I'd like to discuss.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Did you get that, Mrs. Ford? All right. So, questions, comments?
I certainly remember it being brought up as something that we're going to vote on today, but I don't recall going into extensive detail on what is being proposed. And so I just wondered, at least for the public, can we at least just have a quick briefing of that?
Go ahead, Mr. McClendon.
Yeah, basically this just gives Dr. Johnson the authority to put out some kind of RFP that looks at what is out there for us to look at. Doesn't put us, we don't have to sign anything or agree to anything, but lets companies come to us and tell us what they can do in making sure that we get our schools secure.
Okay. Would we do this immediately, Dr. Johnson, or what are your thoughts on the timeline?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll let Brent speak to it, but we would jump on releasing RFP. And to be clear about what this is for people because there are a lot of technology companies and such that's out there, and so we'll get inundated. I want to say that publicly. It's for people. So you want to talk about RFP and timeline?
Yeah, so it would take us at least 30 days to get an RFP out and do all the advertising. Of course, that might be expanded a little bit because of the holidays between Thanksgiving and Christmas, but we would get it out as soon as possible. We would have to consult with some subject matter experts to make sure that we have the right criteria in the RFP. We have things to look at like armed versus not armed, if they're in the school or only on the exterior of the school, certified to be around children, completed certain background checks, those types of things. So we would request input from the county, specifically the SRO office, just for some of the input around the criteria. And then once we have that developed, we can do the advertising, which has to be a minimum of 11 days. And then we would look for responses.
How does this play into the hire that we're making for the chief security officer? Because my thought is, shouldn't that person build this RFP?
Yeah, that person will be extremely involved. We're scheduled to interview for that role next week in hopes that before we go to Thanksgiving break or immediately after, we're able to name that person. This person would be deeply involved in not just the development of the RFP, but also any recommendation we brought to the board. If something that was recommended was approved by the board, that person would be heavily involved, probably directly responsible for the oversight in regards to, its implementation in schools.
So we're probably not really looking at 30 days for an RFP. We're probably looking at 45 to 60 days, because by the time you hire this person, they get started, they build the RFP.
If we wait on that person to do it, then it would, it could take longer.
I'm sorry. Just to be clear, I don't necessarily. I think it would happen simultaneously or concurrently.
Okay.
So the person would anticipate the person being hired. That doesn't necessarily have to stop the building of the RFP.
Okay.
And then as that person comes in, obviously that RFP is sitting before them
the options,
and look at what's within there. So.
And how much money do we actually have to spend on this as a resource? Like, if we put an RFP out, like how big of a contract could a company in theory have, or an organization have with us?
I'd have to look exactly. We have $500,000 budgeted for up to 7 SROs. I think the arrangement is that we don't pay for SROs until they've filled what they need to fill at the sheriff's office. and then we would pay only for the additional 7 if the others are full. So that would mean currently we've got the full amount available minus what we budgeted for this new security coordinator position.
Mrs. Lennon.
I just want to make sure that publicly that everybody is aware that I think it's more important that every school has a very strong safety committee in place versus, I think the SROs are extremely important in our schools, but it's more important that our schools, that every administrator, every teacher, every staff person knows what to do. The SRO or security person is not necessarily the one that's going to be the person that's going to be in that classroom with those kids. And so that's why I think it's more important to get this security administrator hired first so that they know how to be able to talk to every school and make sure that everything is in place in every school. I know for District 2, when we started talking about this and we looked at what was happening in District 2, that we looked at the model that Red Bank High School had, and we said, whoa, that's what we need to look at. That's what's working. And we like what the safety committee was doing at Red Bank High School, and that was a good model. And they have it going on. You know, they meet once a month, sometimes twice a month, but we won't say that. But every new teacher that comes in the building is trained. They know what's going on. They know what the reunification plan is, and I think that's what's important.
Okay, Mrs. Thurman.
Yeah, there are a few thoughts about this. I guess one of my concerns is if we pay these people more than we're paying our current SOR officers, we're going to probably lose more SRO officers. Do we know why the SRO officers that we have, that some of them have left, do we know why? Do we do any kind of exit work with those people to know why they leave?
You know, the sheriff's department does the hiring and would facilitate. Now, there's a mix of things, and I need to say this just as a table set, because I don't want to think I'm being coy. I think anytime we talk about student safety and what's happening in buildings, just because of the nature of people, I just want us to be very careful about what we say and we don't say. So I think to the point, there are currently some SROs that are reservist, and so some have that going on. There are currently some SROs that are on potentially medical leave and such, and then they just have some vacancies.
I just didn't know if it was the pay or if it, I just wasn't real sure exactly what that was. Another thing, and I hate Senator Garden hire left because I was going to ask him this question. I know some of you are going to be apoplectic with that, but I'm used to that. Where are we with arming teachers in Tennessee? You say, I would just as soon trust a principal or a teacher with a gun as somebody we're just going to train for a few weeks and come in, not know them. I'm very serious about this. I just wonder, I don't know where we are in the state of Tennessee. I know it's been brought up in the legislature. I just take that Senator Bardenhire left.
Yeah, I think I saw an article earlier this week where that question was posed to the commissioner, and the commissioner had shared she wasn't prepared necessarily to speak to it at that time. I won't say prepared, but just didn't have enough information or whatever the case was, but was certain, I think from what I kind of gathered, that it'd be discussed during the legislative session because one of the legislators was re-elevating the point. So I do know that the governor has continued the commitment to the Safe Schools grant, in which we're taking a big chunk of our funds to do some hardening of some forced entries, in some of our older schools. We just need to make sure there is a forced entry to the front office.
I still think the teacher's the first line of defense.
Agree.
And principals, I'm with Kathy on a lot of that, but you just add one more element to that, I think it just makes it that much more stringent, and I think it's just something we need to look at. Thank you. Scott, do you know where they are on that? I guess I could ask you where they are in the legislature about this.
I know it's a topic of discussion. I know that TSBA has some real concerns about it. In fact, so do a lot of professional law enforcement organizations, because law enforcement officers are trained to use a continuum of force: officer's presence, verbal commands, hand techniques, non-lethal weapons, lethal force. With a teacher, you have one option, and it's 0 to 60. So I think that there will be some opposition from law enforcement agencies and law enforcement unions for that reason, on the policy basis that teachers are not going to have the level of training that an SRO would. But to the point that Dr. Johnson made, the problem that we're running into is the same problem that everyone around the state's running into. Law enforcement is not a career that people are going into because it's stressful. The sheriff's department, I think, is down 100 positions. The police department's down more than that.
Well, I mean, it's not like this is something unusual. I mean, there's a lot of school districts that do this. I mean, I've been doing it for 10, 15 years. So, I mean, it's not something that's just out of the question, and they've managed to do it. And like I say, I know that the police recruitment is way down. We think teacher recruitment's down. The law enforcement is way down. And that's just going to leave us in the lurch here somewhere. And
One of the points that we have with an RFP process is we might be able to find, and you're right, that about the competition. That's obviously a concern, but I'm certain that the purchasing department can draft an RFP that looks at qualifications. There are a number of law enforcement officers out there who have retired, and I'm familiar with some that have their own security agencies. And so one of the things that obviously the purchasing department can look at is, are we looking at unarmed security? Are we looking at armed security? Are those former post-certified?
You have to take your slingshot, don't get an arm, I'm sorry.
Well, and to Mr. McClendon's point about having an RFP, it's so the board can find out what's out there to educate itself, so that you can make an informed decision, so you don't have to guess about what's next.
that begs the question, what's RFP? Who's going to say what's in the RFP? Just whoever, I mean, until this person comes on board. Who gets a say? Does the board get a say what we want? I mean, what's that going to look like?
Yeah, if you have specific things that you desire as a board, you know, you can always share those things with me. Send them to me directly. I'll make sure that purchasing gets them as they look at constructing that RFP. And
I don't want to be blindsided like we were this facilities study that came out. I mean, I just wanted to know a little bit about what's going on before we're just slapped in the face with it.
Well, I'll certainly offer some input to Mr. Goldberg's department, but my thought would be, what's out there? What services do you have? What is your training? What are your qualifications? What experience do you have? And you're going to get everything from private security, which is, I've got a walkie-talkie and I know who to call, versus you've got retired police officers who are post-certified. And with the continuum of qualifications, you're going to have a continuum of expenditures, which gets to the point that Ms. Robinson was asking.
Just one point of, absolutely, we'll bring it, we can bring the RFP forward to you. We did it with buses. We brought the RFP forward before you. We did the same thing with Capital. I think once they put together their presentation, you know, there may have been some issue there, but as far as the RFP coming before you all and you all looking at the RFP, I mean, that's the intent. You all will approve the RFP, so it won't be surprising at all.
Mrs. Hill.
Thank you, Joe. At the TSBA convention that we attended this weekend, some of us were there, Tucker included, when there was a presentation on the realities of active shooter situations within schools, but nationwide. And it was incredibly difficult to hear and to contemplate. But I was struck by some of the somewhat simple and very practical things that school systems and really anyone who has a large facility needs to be thinking about. And a change in perspective on when we think about safety and first aid, what things are most important in this modern age. The things that stood out to me, and that when I was at Hickson High School this week for Leadership Hamilton County Schools, I talked to the students. They do have anchors, Tucker, on some of the corners. So we learned about hard corners, that if a shooter were to come in that door, we should all be in that corner, not in this corner. So that's a hard corner. That every bit of furniture goes against that door. And our students don't know that every bit of furniture goes against that door. It didn't seem with the ones that, I mean, they knew we go to this corner. They didn't know we blockade, we make it as hard as possible for anybody to get in this room. But another thing that really stood out was first aid, and that in the Florida school shooting that was so horrible, students bled to death, and people bleed to death. And I would like to, I move that we postpone this motion because I think it is a creative idea, but I would like for us to postpone this until we have our school security officer in place. And here's the why. We think we have an opportunity to use some of that design thinking that our students are using to say, how might we best address our school security within the current reality that we are not able to get as many SROs as we want. And we have X amount of dollars with which to work. There was some legislation in Nashville last year called Stop the Bleed training. I'd like us to look into not just training our teachers on that, but y'all, a teacher might not be in the room when somebody gets hurt. And this training has actually saved lives. In Georgia, there's a child who broke some bones on the playground. And it wasn't any nefarious action. It was something that child would have bled to death if other folks on that playground had not had Stop the Bleed training. So I wonder, is that something like, how might we make best use of our resources in a thoughtful, modern way? Is it that we augment our health classes in high school so that every kid that graduates from Hamilton County Schools knows CPR and they know how to put pressure on a wound? I appreciate your idea, Tucker. I am just not convinced that we have the information we need to ask for an RFP that would ultimately get us where we want to go. Because I feel like it's a bigger picture, and I would like that school safety officer to have looked at every school safety plan and walked those buildings with those principals and seen where are the risks. There's so many potential layers that we could touch. And I agree completely with Rhonda about the risk of paying a high wage to someone who actually doesn't function as a school resource officer, but then causing problems within our resource officer community. So thank you for the idea.
Mr. Bennett, how do we need to proceed? Do we need to see if we get a second for Mrs. Hill's motion before
I
we?
think that's a motion to table, and so it requires a second, and if so, then
specifically to postpone, I guess. Or table, whichever you say is better.
I'll second that, Jeannie. I think that's a good idea.
So the board will vote on the motion to table and see what happens.
Okay.
At the risk of being out of order here, so before we vote on that, the motion to table, are we going to discuss the motion to table before you take a vote?
If we now have a motion and a second, I guess we can.
Well, ordinarily, you don't debate a motion to table, but the thing is, practically.
I guess just where I'm at is I don't know why we can't do it simultaneously. Why we got to kick the can down the road? I mean, superintendent made it very clear we can do this simultaneously. And then all we're doing right now is we're going to explore a possibility. We're not approving anything. So why do we need to complicate things? My goodness. Develop an RFP, let Tucker work with them in developing that RFP, and then bring it back to us, and we either up or down it. Today, we're not approving anything. Why can't we do it simultaneously? Why do we need to kick the can down the road?
Well, as I see it, if we move forward with this, we're setting a process into motion in which we have one choice in front of us when that comes to the board, that we would choose either we accept a bid or we do not, but we won't have had other plans that we're considering. So that I don't see it as kicking the can down the road so much as figuring out what the heck the can is.
Mrs. Thurman.
Yeah, that's, and there too, I'm worried about that if we make a new hire, they may come in with a completely different something that maybe we really like, and we've already started this other process down the road. So I just think that, they need to be on board and they might give us some ideas we haven't even thought of. So that's my thinking.
Mr. McClendon.
Yeah, what Joe said, there's no reason we can't do this at the same time. I'm glad to hear we have the anchors in the rooms. I know at my high school, it was a tough conversation after Sandy Hook saying, hey, you've got to get in this corner if someone comes in here with a gun and make sure the door's locked. Those were tough conversations to have as a sophomore, junior in high school. There's no reason we can't explore doing a bleed out. That would have saved countless lives in Parkland and El Paso. And I think they're looking at making it a law for all teachers to be have that requirement in the legislature this upcoming year. There's no reason for us to go ahead and get this process started. And if that new hire comes in and looks at the RFP before we send it out, which I would be totally fine with getting that person in, letting him look at it, they're already going to have the background knowledge of of their industry and saying, hey, what do you think about this? And if they have ideas or they have a kind of a different vision, then we kind of change the RFP. But right now, we don't know what's out there, what companies are out there. This isn't something that's new. Schools all across the country, districts all across the country do this. And speaking of layers, yes, each of those things are layers, and the same presentation said you want as many layers as possible. And I said this Monday, think about how many layers are at your school right now if you went and walked into a school. It's not many. And so I just echo what Joe said is why can't we do this at the same time? We're fully functional as a school system to do that. This isn't something that we're agreeing to. This is something, let's get the ball rolling on this. We can adapt if a new hire comes in. And I think we would all be more than welcoming to have that perspective, because I don't have that perspective. I know what I would like to see from a company. But I would also defer on people in law enforcement from the county, from the city, just to get their input on this. But this does nothing more than makes it a conversation. We craft an RFP, we send it out, see who responds. There might not be any fits out there, and we have to go on to that next or that next solution. But we could get a company that's killer, that does this all across the.
Not a killer company, Tucker.
Not the right word choice there, but that's great. That's amazing. That's wonderful. That we might like, that might actually come along with us and say, we can actually come into your schools, and the person that's there, the security officer, can actually lead those trainings and bleed out. Or they might be able to, have a hand in those safety plans. And so that's kind of my vision. Let's see what's out there. We don't know right now. We're blind in that subject. And that's what this RFP, or my hope for this RFP to open our eyes to it.
Mrs. Lennon.
I would kind of tend to agree with, I'd kind of like to see what we have in place first to get a person on board and to let them lead the charge, let them lead the way, because I think it's important for them to take charge of this situation. Because we're putting something out there that we really don't know that we need, and that they don't know what. Let them get settled in the position first before we put the RFP out there, because they need to see what our system is like, what we have, and what we're working with. I think that's very, very important, because they're going to be the one that's going to be working with the system, and they need to see what we actually have in the schools first before we throw an RFP out there, because it's really the teachers and the administrators in the buildings that need to give the input to this new security, the administrator of security, whatever the position's going to be called. And I think it's very important not to put an RFP out there before you have the input from the person that you're going to hire.
Hey, I'm going to just, before I recognize Ms. Thurman, because I'll forget or not get this in if I don't do this, but I promised Dr. Highlander that I would just read this, and it is very brief, but he said, I agree with my colleague, Mr. McClendon, that we need to look at increasing school safety, especially in buildings where the county is not able to provide an SRO. I think we should authorize our director to research the best alternatives possible until SROs can be found. My concerns are that our legal team and any additional legal counsel they recommend must be utilized in the process. Additionally, the county sheriff or his designee should have input in the process. These two steps will help ensure the best decisions possible are made. Any safety officer carrying a weapon in or around our children must have the right demeanor, training, and abilities to do so. Like all of you, I pray for the safety, well-being, and achievement of our children. Respectfully, Steve Highlander. So, Mrs. Thurman.
Yes, Jeannie, the excellent point about the stop the bleed. I've read something about that. Someone told me that y'all talked that, so I did a little bit of research about that. It's a great idea. CPR also a great idea. I'm just wondering about each one of our learning communities. Maybe that would be a good night, to have. In each one of the learning communities, have it for the whole family or something, not just for the kids. And then maybe we can look at implementing it later, but maybe that's the way to get it out into the communities. Maybe that's something that we might be able to do. We don't have to wait on this to do that. I think it can happen.
I just think the only thing I'll say, and I'd be remiss not to say this, and I'm taking off my superintendent hat, putting on the father hat for a minute. When I send my child to school every day, as so many of us so many of you on the board does, and so many parents do, you always expect your child to come home to you safely. We are in a very unfortunate day and time, and I don't want to. We've got to do all this stuff in regards to keeping our children safe. We also have to. And I read an interesting piece of research that said, the profile of the active shooters, like there's not a profile anymore because the profile is moving so frequently. But there's one constant around the mental health pieces. And so I just want to make sure, I'd be remiss not to elevate that in the midst of the conversation. When you go back and you look at who's committing these crimes right now, it is folks that have mental health issues. And that's just a reality. And so just want to make sure we don't miss that. And as we talk about all of this, we understand that all of these elements, are really important. Obviously, the safety precautions of the mental health component is important as well.
Okay, so we have the motion before us to table. Yes, sir. So if no further discussion, then Mrs. Ford, will you call for the vote, please?
Mrs. Hill,
Yes.
Mrs. Lennon,
I'm confused. What is it that we're voting on?
Motion to table.
So to postpone the RFP process until some later date.
Yes.
Mr. McClendon,
No.
Mrs. Robinson,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
No.
Mrs. Thurman,
Yes.
Chairman Wingate.
No.
Motion fails.
Okay, so we tabled that. Did we get?
It takes 5.
Oh, well, so there may not be a majority.
That's exactly right.
Wait, is that not a majority?
And it has to be 5.
It takes a majority of the board and not a majority of the quorum.
Until there's a fifth.
Yeah, 4-3, it fails, only in school board law.
So now
So
we
now we
vote
vote on the original motion.
So now we vote on the original motion.
Correct.
All right. So now we are to the original motion to direct the administration to issue a request for proposals to provide security services for Hamilton County schools. Now, any discussion on that?
Yeah, I just might suggest that, like you've done with other committees and in other particular areas of interest, maybe suggest that, Mr. Chairman, that you appoint Tucker to work with the staff and that committee in putting that RFP together. That's just a suggestion.
I like the suggestion. Mr. Bennett, would there be anything excluding other board members from being involved in that?
If you had a second.
If they had interest in doing that along with Mr. McLennan?
There's nothing that would prohibit there being collaboration, but then any kind of discussion would be subject to the Open Meetings Act, so you'd have to give notice.
Okay. Would there be any notice before those meetings anyway? I guess not.
Well, so if the administration's putting together an RFP, Mr. Goldberg's office puts it together, he loops in other people who have input, we discuss it, and it's done.
Yeah.
If you bring in a board member, and certainly you can, that's another layer. If you bring in two board members, it's
more complicated. I got you. Okay. I guess that's something we can discuss, right? We don't have to. That doesn't have to be a part of this. Yeah. Okay.
But we still have to vote on the motion.
Correct. All right. So let's vote on the motion before us. If we don't have any other discussion there.
Mrs. Hill,
No, not right now.
Mrs. Lennon,
No.
Mr. McClendon,
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson,
No.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman,
No.
Chairman Wingate.
Yes.
Motion fails.
All right. So we'll have to bring this up at a later date. Yep. Yeah. There you go. We're already working on the agenda for the next meeting. There you go. All right. So, so that brings us to events and announcements. 27th through the 29th will be the Thanksgiving holiday. We have a partnership network meeting on December the 3rd. Board retreat, Friday, December 6th, and Saturday, December 7th. That'll take place at Chattanooga State. December 9th, we'll have an agenda session and then also joint meeting with the County Commission. And then our next meeting will take place December the 12th. And remember, again, as we amended earlier, the announcement of the Christmas at the Courthouse on December the 3rd. Do we have any other events or announcements?
Yeah, I don't think you mentioned December 3rd, 4th, and 5th, MGT, and this schedule's online available. We'll be having community feedback sessions around the facility study.
Mrs. Robinson.
This coming Monday, we are giving out Thanksgiving dinners to families in the Orchard Knob community, and we still need volunteers from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. If anyone's available and wants to hand out Thanksgiving dinners, we'd love to have you. So at Orchard Knob Middle.
All right. Meeting adjourned.